Hi, friend. Welcome back to Holistic Moms. It's your host, Shan Wright, and today we're going to continue Jill's testimony. So if you're on the edge of your seat like I was, then I'm glad you came back today to hear the rest of it. And she's going to give you very clear action that you can take at the end. So make sure you listen the whole way through. Grab those intentional actions at the end and make this testimony something that you can share with others, or maybe it's for you. So, ready? We're going to defeat the enemy by the word of our testimony and hearing others and sharing others' testimonies. So let's go. Hey mama, are you stressed by the lack of time in the day to do all the things? Are you feeling disconnected from God, your husband, and even your kids because patience and presence seem out of reach? Do you want a healthier body, mind, spirit, and home, but overwhelmed in where to start? Hey, I'm Shan Wright, daughter of the king, wife, mom to 4, RN, wellness coach, and I know very well what it feels like to want to live well, but about to lose it with my very blessed, full life. After realizing I can't pour from an empty cup, I tracked my way to whole body wellness and so much peace. If you are ready to cancel the stressed out life, learn tactical, intentional strategies as a mom wearing many hats, find more peace, confidence, and joy raising kingdom kids, then listen in. Come on, mama, together we got this. Really, God's got this. So go heat up that coffee again and turn your listening ears on. Let's chat. Hey, mama. Do you feel stuck in the messy middle of motherhood? Does your head feel like it's going to explode and you're on the verge of an anxious breakdown? Do you feel disconnected from God and others because you're too exhausted to form a sentence? Do you wish you had more time to get all the things done instead of feeling like a chicken with your head cut off? Do you want to live well and care for your temple, but you just don't even know where to start? Do you feel like you're not living up to this whole wife and mom thing? Mama, I know life is crazy, and you have this very blessed, full life that is just so overwhelming. As a mom of 4, honestly, I have been there. I've had feelings of overwhelm and anxiety much of my life, struggling from perfectionism, control, and overwhelm. I remember what it feels like to be wanting more than that daily mundane, yet feeling like I'm not enough all at the same time. To want to live well, but completely overwhelmed, anxious, and a real hot mess express. I know it looks like all the other moms have it together but you, and that's not true. And I know this because you are like me. You want more. After postpartum anxiety, enough was enough, and I just tracked my way to whole body wellness and so much peace. Sis, I'm here to encourage you that you can do it too. As a wellness nurse mentor and your mama friend, I'm here to share all that I know when it comes to being completely overwhelmed and living at peace and in wellness at the same time. In my wellness accountability coaching, I'll use science, truth of the word, and holistic coaching to help you get your head out of the goldfish and laundry bin and tap into the super abundant life that God has for you. Are you ready to live your whole life well? Let's pursue wellness one baby step of courage at a time, and before you know it, you will be a wellness warrior. Book me for a coaching call today. Go to bit.ly/the Shan Wright. bit.ly/THESHANWRIGHT. Take that first step of courage now and book me today. I can't wait.
I'm yelling at him. I'm like, why aren't you doing something? Like, I'm not supposed to be in this workplace with this guy that I had an affair with. Like, why aren't you finding me a job at another exhibit house? Or, like just angry. And like, it's his fault, right? And so I finally get my way. I mean, after I could go on with all the stories where God was trying to get my attention so many times, but
Right.
my running, hustling mentality was just on fast track. But it was finally, and this is why I'm such a power of stillness. It was finally because my world was so noisy. It was noisy with wrong voices. It was noisy with distractions like alcohol, not good connection of community of women who were speaking life into me. It was just loud and noisy. And so finally, after multiple attempts where God was trying to say, this is not what you want to do, Jill. And I believed that, but I was still stubborn, Jill. Pushed through, moved out. It was like in the quiet of the condo that I had rented, where finally that was that act of surrender. And I
Mm.
remember sitting there and I was making a spaghetti dinner for party of one for me in a
Mm-hmm.
very quiet house. And I look around and I don't hear my beautiful children's voices. I don't have a husband next to me. And I stopped. I broke down. I cried. I dropped to my knees and I said, God, I can't do this. You are my only
Mm-hmm.
one who can help me. What am I doing? What am I doing? And I said, I surrender. I give it to you. You tell me which way to go. My mind is not right. I'm not in a good spot, but I know that you are my Lord and Savior. You always have been. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for walking away from you. I just surrendered everything that night. And I can't tell you, it is like the most uh it was just in that instant a
Mm-hmm.
calmness over my whole body that I hadn't felt in years. And I went to bed that night. I slept. I hadn't slept in several months, if not years, because I was
Mm.
always filled with guilt and shame and
Mm-hmm.
remorse, but I didn't know how to communicate that. And I slept, and I share this in a book that I wrote, and I said I woke up to a vivid dream. It was a black chalkboard in big white letters. It just said trust. I mean, I go back to that chalkboard
Mm.
so many times, and I knew, right? And a lot of people ask me that. They're like, how did you know like what that meant? I said, you just know, like I just knew that the Lord was speaking to me to say, trust me, Jill, my hand is with you. And in that moment, I knew what trust meant. Was trust means family first, restore that
Mm.
family. And I called my husband and I said, and this was like, I really wasn't in that condo long at all. Like I literally, we moved, I mean, I think I moved out in May and I was back in my house the week of Christmas that same year. And by miracles of God, right, he was able to find somebody else to rent that, didn't have to pay a year contract. Um, but yeah, I called my husband and I said, well, we're gonna make this work and I'm gonna come home. And he's like, well, what changed? And I said, God has given me a vision. And so yeah, for like a couple months there, we had like two houses, and I always joke that my kids, I think, like thought we were just rich or something. We're like, mom's got like
That's
a
so funny.
condo down here, and we got this house, but we're
Got
like two
condos
houses.
everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so the funny part about that is that it's not the story is not funny at all, but I think God does work in he has a sense of humor. And so
Yeah.
we pass that condo every day on the way to church. And
Uh,
and for so long, my littlest one, who was probably 2 at the time, for so
mm-hmm.
long, he remembered that condo and he would bring it up. He doesn't bring it up anymore. And I'm like, thank you for not bringing it up. But it was like almost like God was using him, like, hey mom,
Yeah. A reminder.
there's your place. There's our little fun
Yeah.
house. I was like, no, it's not a fun house.
Yeah.
Not
That's
a
so
fun house.
crazy. That's so I've been diving into dreams and vision.
Mhm.
My word of the year is vision. And I've been dreaming into or dreaming um diving into this whole concept of dreams and visions
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
I mean they're all throughout the Bible,
Oh yeah.
and it's like, well, God still talks to us in that way, but
Yeah.
are we listening? Are we paying attention?
Yeah.
And I love that. I actually have heard so many testimonies of people that they had their life changed, they had their come to Jesus moment when it was only them and God, no one else
Yeah.
around. Well,
Right.
duh, it's because no one else is around distracting you. And,
Yes.
you have that stillness and solitude. Like,
Yeah.
it is like God wants us to be just with Him. Like,
Hmm.
not that He doesn't want us to have relationships with others, but He wants that us to just, you know, listen to His voice, which is a
Yeah.
whisper.
Yeah.
But what I as you were sharing that dream, which I forgot that part of your story, um, is I think it's so cool that it was on a chalkboard because what do teachers and coaches do? They write on
Right? On
chalkboards.
chalkboard. Yes.
And here you are speaking and coaching
Yeah.
and teaching people and it was written, which you've written a book.
Yeah.
You are a writer in your speaking. And so it's like, wow, all that chalkboard signified so many things.
Hmm.
Um, and that's the thing about God dreams. Like we do have dreams from, our own thoughts and, the
Right.
enemy can give us nightmares and bad dreams. But when God gives you a dream, everything, just like with anything God says,
Hmm.
there's so much meaning to it. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
God, what does this mean? There's so
Yeah.
much behind this one word of trust. There's
Yeah.
so much behind the way that you wrote it in my dream. Like, I just love that so
Yeah.
much.
I love it. I love it too. And I'm definitely a person of that too. I've always had a gift of just a natural intuition, right? Instinct.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I know that to be true now, that absolutely is a gift. And
Yeah.
but any gift, right? You need to nurture it and breathe light on it and use that gift. And so I had that gift, and that gift led me so far in life as a younger girl. I trusted that what I didn't know was that is the Holy Spirit, right? That's the Holy Spirit
Mm.
in you. And I trusted that from, high school to college to, my early 20s, 30s. Um, and it was like it brought me so much joy, and it led me to where I feel God was calling me. But it was like almost when I reached 30, it was when I stopped believing that. I just kind of thought, I just got kind of lucky in life. I got all these achievements and I got here just because I'm, I don't know. Like I kind of
Pride.
dismissed my gift, and I believe the lies of the world that says the more that you have, the better you are. You are what others say of you. If you can
Mhm.
just get here. And I kind of also I became a mom. Became a mom, and I thought, well, this is it. Like, this is as far. I heard a very loud lie of the enemy that said, well, okay, Joe, well, this is it. Like you've reached your plateau. Like you've successful in your career. You got a good husband. Now you're a mom. This is kind of it for you. And that, if you know me, like my fun is my core value. Like I love to have fun. I love adventure. I love doing things. And I'm just like, I believed it. And I was like, well, that's not cool, because this
Yeah.
cannot be it for me. And that little voice of the enemy really, that I took that captive, believed it, kind of looked around at my circle and was like, I think that's true.
Yeah.
And that's gave me it spiraled me. And so the thing that I love about what I do now is I help women to recognize those right voices. And it was through that trust on the chalkboard, that teacher, that I started to sit in the stillness of God, recognize my dreams, recognize his voice that is always of love and compassion and guidance, and started to just find that love of writing again, which led me to writing my book, which never would have dreamed of. Called me to a podcast to, use my gift of communication and speaking and getting on stages and telling my testimony. Um, and I love that because when I help women, I'm really creating that space for them to be heard, to share their story with me, to say, hey, I get it. I've been there with you. And then I take my journaling prompts that was it when I was in my darkest moments. I found some of these questions that I asked myself, and I just started writing those, and I've put those into workbooks for my clients. And that is where I can teach you all the tools about productivity and or time management. Like I was burnt out, but I never missed a deadline. I never missed a project. Like that's in my wheelhouse gifts too. And I can teach you that. But the thing that most of the clients they want that, right? Give me the tools, give me the resources, and let me just work less, get more done, be the high achiever that I want to be. But what we find is that there's something else going on behind the scenes. There's always something going on behind the scenes. And so that's the part that I love, is we get them quiet and still. And I love their faces when I tell them that I'm going to make you do some journaling work. And they're like, oh, well, okay, sure. Okay, Jill. And it's like the one thing that they're like, you didn't give me a journal prompt this week. Like, I really missed that. And I was like, see, there's where it's at. Like, what's happening, what you don't really know what's happening, but they end up know because we talk about it. And I'm like, you realize the Holy Spirit is talking to you in those moments of stillness. You finally have sat your butt down, like I was, running around crazy like you're a chicken with your head cut off. You finally sat down and you're able to start seeing things in a clearer way. You're being intentional to seek, like, something's got to change. I've got to change, right? So I love that part. I love that part when I can start seeing their eyes opening to the power of stillness. They start getting a little bit curious about what is all this faith in God talk you're talking about. That's the ministry where I know that God is calling me in my coaching business is yes, help high achievers that are running around crazy, help them to, realign their life to what matters most, and find their gifts and their purpose. And so we do all kinds of assessments with a tool that I use that really taps into gifts that you can use in your work. We talk a lot about purpose and your natural gifts that you're born with. Like, don't dismiss those. So yeah, it has been a journey. I would say your listeners know they are Christians. Any journey with God, it's a journey. He takes you on a journey, but if you can trust it and lean into it, because believe me, when I heard the call of where he wanted me to go, like, I heard very loud and clear, like, he started doing it in small ways. He would just bring women that I already knew in my circle, but they didn't know about our affair, right? So when you have kids, you start going to sporting events, after the fact. They don't know you. You start building new, mom groups through your kids. And so there was a lot of people that we were friends with that didn't know the Jack and Jill story back in 2017, So God would just bring these women to me and they say, hey, man, you and Jack are so great. Like, I just wish I could have that in my marriage. Like, I wish we could be like you. You guys always get along. You're super happy. And it was in those moments that I could hear. And sometimes Jack would be with me where he would look at me and like, we need to tell them, where I could have easily said, I know we are pretty great, aren't we? Like, we're Jack and Jill. Like, that makes us awesome already.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
But no, I didn't do that. Like, it was in those moments I said, you know what? Thank you. We are a pretty rock solid team. But let me tell you about back here, what happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, the eyes blown. But so little by little, people like that, women, he would bring women like that around. And then I heard loud and clear, bigger. I want it. This testimony needs to be shared larger. Like, leave your job, coach women, start speaking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like, our personal friends and family, I'm okay that they know, but you just want me to go out on social media and just share this and go speak on stages in front of 300 and some women and just be like, mic drop, I had an affair, and tell my dirty laundry? Like, really, God? I don't know about that. But it was a burning desire. And I think the women that listening know that have walked the journey with God. He will ask you to do some things that maybe doesn't make sense to you, but if you lean into that and you trust that and you keep taking the steps that he's leading you, my goodness, I don't even recognize my life. I'm just gonna, like, when I think back about to those days, I mean, I know it was all there. Not that the affair was purposeful, but he uses that. And that's why I created my podcast, is to help women understand, like, whatever battle you are in right now, like, don't dismiss it. Like, that can all be turned. That's why my favorite scripture, Romans 8:28, all things, right, can be, all things work together for the good for those who love God and are called to his purpose. Like, he will use the deepest thing that you think there's no way. How could he love me? How could he turn this around after what I did? I promise you, he will make that a beautiful thing. So you take those ashes, rise up from them, trust that he will do something good. Whoever's listening that needed to hear that right now, like, he will. I promise you. I'm a walking testimony of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you you loved your old job. You said you loved it.
Yes.
You were very successful in it. And
Hmm.
so when God is telling you, no, now this is what you need to do, this podcasting,
Yeah.
speaking, coaching, bigger, bigger. Um, did you have any resistance in that as far as like, but I mean, you
Mhm.
had you already stepped down a little bit from that job because of
No, that's that's the crazy thing about it. So for 4 years after the affair, I worked alongside this man in the same company. And that's where I was starting to get really angry and upset was I was like, there's at that point I was starting to have revelation, relationship with God, talking to God. I was applying to all these places, would get second interviews, and they would go silent or they wouldn't call me back or they'd say, we went a different direction. And they were for jobs that
Mhm,
were very similar to the ones that I was successful at, right? Event
mhm.
management, project management, high stress level jobs. And I'm like, I am overqualified for these jobs. I'm going to take a pay cut for these jobs and I'm not getting them. Like, come on, God. Like, you know that the enemy can tempt me at any moment if I stay at this place of work. Let alone my husband is at home working and he has to deal with this subconscious enemy that's saying I'm doing awful things, right? Where
Yeah. Yeah.
only God could remove the lens. I mean, I remember praying that prayer like, if I'm going to have to work here and provide money for our family, then God, I need you to remove the speck out of my eye. I need you to remove this guy so that or and the emotions, the feelings that was once there to like nothing. And he did that.
Yeah.
I mean, completely did that. So for
Wow.
4 years like I didn't there was nothing. It was just like instantly he just changed that. But
Wow.
yet I was like, but this still isn't right. Like, this isn't right for my husband. Like, what's going on? Um, and so that is when, it was probably about, well, 2020, I would say it was a blessing for me because it shut the world down.
Mm.
And my, I was able to be still work at my job, but not be in the office. That was a godsend for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
walk on that touchy because I know COVID was definitely a time where it was, there was some hardship for sure. But
Yeah.
and personally, it was a blessing.
Yeah.
And then we went into remote work and I had to go back in the office in 2021. But so through that, he was just always working. And eventually I just kept hearing, I couldn't deny it. I could not deny the voice of saying teaching, coaching women. And then he would just bring me, I'd say, I always say that I'm like half deaf in my left ear. And I was like, God, I can't hear well. So I need like you bring me the signs, right? Like bring me
Bring
the
me the megaphone.
chalkboard, the
Come on.
megaphone, like the people. And he does because I'm just like, I'll hear
Yeah.
it, but then I question it, which I shouldn't. And then he'll say, okay, here she goes again. She needs the big road sign up in front of her to be like, oh yeah, okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
So it was 100% leap of faith for sure.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, I love that because, yeah, we're just, we're hard of hearing. We're hard at
yeah,
seeing. God knows that.
yeah.
Okay. So we have recently talked on the podcast about hard things that happen in life and unexpected hard things
Mhm.
and how we handle them in motherhood. So
Yeah.
I really would love you to, talk about how you mothered through all of this. I mean, you have
Great.
so much personal stuff going on, so many ways that you're coping, and a marriage that's falling apart. And yet you have two boys that you have to care for. Can you share like their ages through all of this and
Mhm.
what, how did you handle that?
Yeah. I look back, I think about that, and I literally, but God. I mean, honestly, because
Mhm.
and I think about those. I had so much craziness going on, and yet I was still trying to parent, um, be a faithful wife, um, dealing with a stressful job that I remember the day that all of this fell apart. And I hired a new girl at work, right? And I'm like trying to not cry. Like I'm trying to be like a good
Mhm.
boss and be like, okay, so we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk about systems today. While my marriage is just like crumbling
Yeah.
and somehow, I mean, I don't know. I do believe it's God. There's also another part of me where I just know that I can turn off, turn on, when you're
Yeah.
in those moments where you're faced to do
Compartmentalize.
it. And I think that's with the mom thing. But honestly, I'm glad you asked that question because that was one of the other things too. Like when I said I was in that condo and I didn't see my children around, like I remember being like, my kids were 5 and 2,
Mm.
little, little. And moms, like there are just times when you just want to go to the bathroom by yourself. Like you just want to sit down and have coffee by yourself without your kids climbing on
Hmm.
you. Like, and so I was craving that in those years, but there was also a ton of other stuff going on. But I used that. I was like, well, maybe all this, like that's the enemy lie, right? Oh, well, if you just get divorced, like you'll have, your weekends free. Like, and I think about that
Yeah.
now and
You'll
I'm
have
like,
every other
what?
weekend. Yeah.
Every other weekend, you'll just have your own time, Jill. And I'm like, what in the world was that? Like, I
Hmm.
would it took a day of quietness without my kids and I was like bawling. I'm like, this is awful. Like
Yeah.
I would never ever 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 want to be away from my kids. Like they are my joy. Like they bring me so much joy. And so just momming through that, we were going through a period of our life where I knew deep down. It was like my heart said, um, you don't want this, Jill. Like I heard it from God, but this was even before I heard it from God. But the whole time, even packing up my stuff here at the house, it was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't want this. But it was like deep down, it was like, I don't want Jack to, it was like I wanted permission for him to just let me go. Like I was like, you don't need that in your life to worry, like always be worrying or the reminder of what I did. Like, what if we just separate, like you can be done with that. And it was like this, but that's not what he wanted. Like he was over here begging for our marriage. Um, and that's there's so many God things, but it's like when God, when you know, early on when we had kids, I was like, we got to find our church family. And we found Heartland. I'm forever grateful for Heartland Church. Um, and then I kind of was getting being disobedient. It's like God moved into Jack's life. And then it was like him and God on a team. And they were like, we are not letting Jill go down with the enemy. Like,
Mm.
and he
Yeah.
just was speaking into Jack and like restoring our marriage. And so parenting through it all, like we just looked at each other and we're like, I don't know what's going on, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to let this interfere with our kids. And so that's why I said I think my kids were so confused because we really never separated. Jack and I moved out, made a big old deal about this, moved into a condo, but then like sometimes Jack would come over and we would have dinners together with all of us and then I would come back home and so I just did what I think as any mom would do. You just do what's best for your kids. And I never wanted them to see us, um, angry, upset, or fighting. And we never did. I mean, that's why when you let worldly things take over your life, it tells you lies. I mean, Jack and I never really fought. It was just, I was searching.
Yeah.
I was searching for love and joy. And I thought that I had to find that love and joy in external places and things. And what I found is love, God is love, right? So he filled that. And then he filled that with through my husband too, where I had the blinders on before he opened like the goodness and grace of like my amazing husband. And so from the parenting side, like we just never let them we always have put our kids really, I wasn't for a while, but we are now. Our kids are now, we do everything for our kids. And um, but with that, you also have to remain like you are still a person, right? So I know for moms that can be hard too. It's like you identify yourself as a mom and then you've put all your efforts into just being a mom and doing everything right for your kids, but you've got to have your own space too. And you've got to remind yourself to do the things that you love. Like I started a lot of those, I'm getting off topic probably, but
You're good.
what happened was when I became a mom, I kind of did that. And then I put myself in my work. I stopped doing the things that Jill loves. Like, remember I said, I forgot that I love to write, read,
Yeah.
um, go grab coffee with girlfriends. Like, I don't know the last time did that, and now I'm like, that's like every several times a week I'm having coffee with friends. Like, I love that. It energizes me. And God wants us to be in connection with people. We learn from each other,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's either
yes.
you're either believing one lie or you're believing another. So you're
Yeah.
either believing the lie that like your kids are your entire world and
Yeah.
you really can't do anything as a human being apart from them, or
Yeah.
you are believing another lie of that you find all your joy in your work and that's what you're going to do right now. And so
Yeah.
it has to be that constant renewal of our mind and what are we listening
So
to, what
true.
voice.
Yes.
um
100%.
yeah, I love that. So, okay, to look back at your story,
Mhm.
you um, did a lot. You made a lot of conscious decisions, even the decision to move out and get some space, which
Mhm.
God used that as
Yeah.
your rescue time, which it's
Mhm.
like, you know, the enemy wanted to use separation. He loves separation and isolation. He
Yeah.
wanted to use that for his good, but God said, nope, this is my
Yep.
time. I'm coming in. So you took intentional action of courage
Mhm.
to change this thing around. Like
Yeah.
you helped with God steering the ship, but you turned it around
Yeah.
and like you said, you can't even recognize that life before now. So just for our listeners, practicality,
Yeah.
tell us a few like very specific courageous things you did,
Yeah.
like maybe things in your mothering and things to get your marriage back and things to get your relationship back with God. What did you do?
Yeah. So I love the word that you just said, intentional, and that is actually
Yeah.
my word of the year. I've
Ah!
is intentionality. And everything
That's
I
our
want to
word for the
do. I
podcast.
love it. It's intentionality is, I think what the biggest shift, the first thing I did was exactly that. I was very intentional about what is going on, right? And as a high achiever, I'm not one to ask for help.
Mhm.
I think I can do it all on my own. And I realized there are other people that need help. I can seek God, but who else? And so I was very intentional about seeking a life coach that
Yeah.
could speak life into me. So I'm always, of course, I'm a coach now, but I'm seriously find a coach that you relate to and have
Yeah.
somebody speak words of life over you that's not part of your family or your friend circle that can give you a different perspective. That was a game changer for me. The second thing was I realized for too long I had been robbing the things that bring me joy because I didn't think I had time. Well, that's a killer in your life.
Mhm.
So what happened was I used to love I don't love to work out, but I love the feeling that it makes me feel when I do work out, right? So
Yeah.
I was very habitual about getting up early in the morning, working out, getting that done. Well, I didn't have time to do that anymore because I'm too dang busy. So I stopped working out. Well, when I stopped working out, then I started also drinking a lot. So instead of coming home, if I didn't get my workout in the morning, I'd be like, well, I'll just do it at night. Well, by the time I get home at 7 o'clock and then we're racing to get dinner, ready, or my husband, awesome husband, already probably fed them a lot of times. Well, then I would just go drink wine, right? And so my
Yeah.
body became unhealthy. So I realized in those moments of what did bring me a feeling of that I felt good about my life. What outside of achievements, like what makes Jill feel good? And it was working out or date nights. Like I forgot that we hadn't had a date in a long, long time. And so we planned to have scheduled date nights, or we would say let's be intentional about when we put the kids to bed, let's talk. Let's just
Yeah.
talk. Like, and I always say I'm a great communicator. I was a great communicator in my work with my coworkers as a manager. I was terrible at communicating in my marriage. And so we both realized like we have to communicate everything. Like what is going on? And so um that was a childhood wound for me where I just hold a lot of things in until it bubbles up and then it all comes out, and all that would come out over wine and drinking, right? Which is not a good
Mhm.
time. So making intentional time to communicate with your spouse and sitting with each other and saying like, outside of just how was your day, right? Like, let's talk
Yeah.
about what's going on. What are things that you need that I can help you with? Um, so I would say that those were the biggest things, honestly, the steps that I took. And then
Yeah.
creating that morning routine. When I said I didn't have time, anymore, I was like, I'm going to make time. So I rolled my alarm clock back 30 minutes is where I started before my kids got up. So I wasn't
Hmm.
waking up chaotic when they were
Amen.
getting in, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that literally was the biggest game changer. And I still do it
Yeah.
today. I've been doing it now for four years probably. Um, where the coffee is set the night before, the laptops and the Chromebooks are charged, the snacks are all packed, everything's ready to go. And so I just get up and it's like somebody brewed me coffee. I pour it, I sit down, I spend, time. It changes it a little bit every day, but most of the time it's, prayer with God, sometimes journaling, sometimes reading a good book. It can be whatever you want it to make. When my clients always ask me that, it's like, what do I do? I'm like, it's got to feel right for you, right? So
Yeah.
if you already get up and work out, go do that first.
Yeah.
Sometimes people can hear, I can get really good ideas. For me, going outside and walking, I mean,
Yep.
nature, I'll hear
Yep.
God clear. So those were some of the steps for sure.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so very helpful. Because, a lot of times we see this well, we hear a great testimony and story, and you're like, well, I relate to parts of that, but my story is different because of this, and then this.
Hmm.
And then we can say, well, I can't turn my ship around because I have this. And it's like, well, take one of these actions that Jill did
Yeah.
and
Yes.
just try
Yeah.
it
Just try
and
it.
see if that helps you out.
Yep. Yeah,
All right.
for
Well,
sure.
it has been so good having you today. I also love all of your passion and all that you're doing for women
Yeah.
as you share your story and all the ways that you share it. Can you tell people where they can find you and what exciting things you have coming up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, best place to find me is just my website, jilloboyle.com.
Okay.
I'm also active on Instagram. It's J-E O'Boyle, though, for my middle name. Those are probably the best places that I'm pretty active. Also on Facebook, Jill O'Boyle. But if you go to my website, all my links are there. I would love to mention the Women's 828 retreat. This is a retreat. We're bringing it back this year. We hosted our first one last year in August, and it was a huge success. So March 8th of this year for listeners in the Indy area. Or
Okay.
if
So
you're
it's
at,
not virtual, it's just in person, correct?
yeah, something we might want to consider is doing a virtual too. This one in March will not be though. It'll be
Okay.
March 8th from 9 to 4. So it's a 1 day women's retreat, 9 to 4, and it's really to dive into um what is your, what is your purpose? Where are you spending your time? Like if you found yourself, doing all the things and you're feeling just something feels off and missing in your life, we dive in, we do a 2-word purpose statement assessment where you'll find your 2-word purpose, and we dive into your core values, into your where are we spending our time, right? I love the book Elimination by Her. I can't think of the guy's name, but he always says, how you spend your time is how you live your lives.
John Mark Comer.
There it is. Yes.
Yep.
Love that book. Love that book. So we do some exercises around that. How are you spending your time? Because
Yeah.
that was so true in my life. And so it's a fun retreat, way to get connected with like-minded women in the community. So I'll send you a little link for that, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll definitely put that link in the show notes. This will air before then. I think it's going to
Yeah.
air next week. So
Oh, good.
give them plenty of time to get
Yeah.
connected to you and get all those resources. That sounds super fun. And it sounds like it can be good for any woman in any stage of her life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Okay. Yes. Thanks so much for sharing with us today. I know it has blessed so many women. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
So wasn't that great? Wasn't that great to hear how God rescued her and intervened in her life when she was just spiraling down and out of control. And it's like he threw a rope and caught her, and she reached up and grabbed it finally, and he rescued her. And so I love the actions at the end that she points out, and I'm just going to go over them real briefly with you to recap. So 1, she said to take intentional action, which we love, right? So, but you have to find out what that intentional action is. And for her, it was she hired a life coach because she was believing lies constantly, right? This is how she ended up in this place. She was believing lies over and over. So she needed to hear words of life spoken over her. And so many times when we are living the lies in our head, we can't hear just the person who occasionally says, no, this is the truth, or the pastor on the Sunday sermon, this is the truth, or occasionally that friend that speaks life into you. It needs to be something that you hear over and over, and it needs to be someone who holds you accountable to doing what that is, to the words of life in action, right? This is what I do as a life coach too. And I call myself a wellness accountability coach. And this is what I can do for you. So book me for a wellness accountability coaching session at bit.ly/the Shan Wright. And then step number 2. She believed she didn't have to do all the things, or she had believed she didn't have time to do all the things that brought her joy. And so she found out what those things were. Where were they missing? She remembered. She went back to her previous life and remembered, what brought me joy? What am I have not been doing? And she found for her, it was working out, date nights, intentional time communicating with her spouse. And what is it for you? What brings you joy that you're not making time for? What are you saying, I don't have enough time for that? We already talked about time a couple episodes ago. So go back, listen to that episode, and remember what brought you joy that you're not doing, that you do have time for. God definitely wants to give you the time for things that bring you joy. And step number 3 was creating a morning routine. And she talked a lot about stillness and solitude. And I am a big proponent of this as well. And she said, specifically and practically, all she did was move her alarm clock back 30 minutes. So if you can do that, do that. Do something to create a morning routine for yourself. And like she said, it could look different than mine, but, spend time with God. No matter what you're doing, spend time with Him in the morning before the rest of the day, even just thanking Him for the day, being grateful for the day, journaling, reading a little book, or obviously the Bible. Do what you can to center your heart on Him and the things that He has for you that day. Okay, those are your 3 intentional actions. Which one are you going to take? Come over and share with us in the Facebook group which one you're going to do. And that is bit.ly/holistic hacks, bit.ly/holistic hacks. Join us, share with us your homework, and I can't wait to chat with you there. Okay, friends, this has been a long one. Thanks for hanging in, and I hope you share this testimony with someone who needs to hear it or it blessed you today. Shalom, shalom. Hey, Wellness Warrior. I pray that blessed you. And if so, it would bless me big if you would write a 5-star review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Not only would this make me super happy, but it will allow for others to find this show too. Also, I love to chat over on Instagram, so make sure to take a screenshot, share to your Instagram stories, and tag me at the Shan Wright so I can see it and we can keep chatting and bring other moms to chat with us. Until we get to chat again, mama friend, may the Lord's face shine upon you and give you peace.